Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Life, Liberty, and Truth. We have Jared here.
What's up, everyone?
And coming back for another guest appearance, Megan.
Hello.
So before we begin, we want to say sorry for last week. Jared really screwed us over and didn't show up and just really ruined it.
Yeah, no, that's not what happened.
No, we just got busy and it was difficult to make time. So anyway, we're here now. We're going to be talking about college indoctrination as three college kids. We kind of feel like this is fitting. We brought in another one to come and talk about it again. So, shall we begin?
Let's go for it.
Sounds good.
All right. So, Jared, the first thing you kind of pointed out when we were talking about this and trying to figure out what our topic was how college talks about and teaches false history. You want to start with that?
Well, I don't think they teach false history necessarily. I think the motive behind the teaching, like a opinion, there's a narrative behind the teaching that they have that they're pushing for their students to hear. So, for instance, now you hear a lot of times that, we were founded on slavery. Well, yes, that's true, but we had basically our founding fathers who built this country and helped create an amazing country and what it is today, put in a lot of work, and they made a lot of sacrifices, and they were good, legitimate people who wanted the best for themselves and other people as well. And so I feel like a lot of times the image of them often gets misconstrued. If you kind of understand what I'm saying there, they're kind of painted as like a bad person for basically just whatever they did, and they're part of history, right? And so there's a lot of debate about certain events in history, obviously, that good decisions, bad decisions, stuff like that, whether America is evil or good. We've talked about that before, but I feel like these historical figures are painted as like villains instead of like heroes, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in our Is America Evil episode. If you guys want to know a little bit more about that, go check it out. But basically everything that we talked about in that episode is stemmed from this indoctrination of college professors going in and teaching not necessarily a false history, but definitely a history with a narrative, whether it's like 1619 Project type stuff. Just kind of teaching that the values that America was founded on aren't necessarily good or true. And so, like I said, we talked about that one in another episode, but that was definitely kind of an important thing. A lot of teachers especially push things such as Marxism, communism, socialism, and instead of teaching objective history, they kind of teach their opinion of and what things, how they want things to be, how they see them, instead of just teaching, look, this is what happened, and that's it, like that's the facts. And
right.
So a lot of that we've talked about too, as far as 60s and 70s sexual revolution type stuff. A lot of these professors are stemmed from that generation of rebellion and that generation of not holding the traditional values that America held before that. And now you can see that definitely influencing into college, school, culture. And now we're starting to see the results of that.
Yep, for sure. Megan, you have anything you want to say or add?
Not to this portion.
Okay. Real quick before we move on, I had an article from USA Today, and basically Donald Trump was saying, and this is what he said: our children are taught in school to hate their own country and to believe that the men and women who built it were not heroes, but that they were villains. That's what Donald Trump said.
That's the basis of our argument right there, and we're not just agreeing on it because that's what Trump says, but that's observations that many people have had Megan, I think you can attest to this too. We've known a lot of people that have gone in with certain views and came out completely changed, whether it's family members, friends,
Right.
I said family members, but that kind of people that you were close to when you were younger. I've seen it happen in public school system as far as high school too, not just colleges. But I think college is definitely where it's worst. Do you have anything that you'd like to say? No.
All right. Well, as far as that goes, I think in addition to talking about how we should view our, founding fathers and these historical figures as heroes and not villains, I think that's 100% true. Like, we should not be painting them as evil people. Like, they made sacrifices. Like, sure, no one's perfect. They, the culture back in the day, if you're going to make the argument about slavery again or, stuff like that, then, that was just how the culture was then. We've talked about this before, right? But we're here now, today in 2020, and I firmly believe that professors in colleges and universities like that, big universities, they kind of really, jump on like the boundaries of, or they kind of mess with, like the accurate history behind some of these people, and like they'll throw their opinion in there, or I'm not saying they can't throw their opinion, but they can't form that opinion to where they're influencing that onto their students, right? They can have an opinion and like a viewpoint and talk about like their morals that they have, but I think they should focus on teaching it rather than talking about their personal beliefs, their values, and then putting it on the students.
And this isn't even just happening in history class, Megan, you went to a private Christian school. Me and Jared both go to public junior colleges, separate ones. But in the experience that I've had in my one semester of college, already it hasn't been happening to me in history class, but it's been happening to me in English class. I had a teacher who is making us write an essay, and all of the articles that she gives us are leftist, feminist articles about how women pay gap, women don't have enough role models. The essay was about the STEM gap, and yes, there's a STEM gap, obviously, but when they're talking about all the ways that they can that we're trying to change it, like literally the articles that they gave us, and it was what type of paper was it? You remember?
No.
It wasn't compare and contrast. That's what I'm doing now. It was it was a cause and effect article. And basically we had to read these articles in one of the books that we're reading and basically come up to why there's a STEM gap. But we can only use the articles that she gave us with the opinions that they gave us. And so literally the causes and effects that I had to use based on the articles that she gave us was women have confidence issues. There's a stereotype that women aren't as intelligent as men, and there's not enough role models in STEM. And none of these articles gave any evidence, any facts, any numbers, and it was strictly based on this whoever was writing its opinion. And these are the articles that they're supposed to give us as evidence. I'm supposed to write an essay on this about why there's a STEM gap with no evidence except for one person's opinion on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in English class. That's not even in history class. So the indoctrination is just insane. It's like, well, what happens if you don't really know that much about this issue or this subject, and you go in and you're like, oh, well, maybe women do feel like this, or maybe women do think that, or this and that. There is a STEM gap. But let's talk about, why are most healthcare workers women? We don't talk about that. But why do we talk about the STEM gap? That's what I want to know. You don't bring up any evidence. You don't give me any option to refute your side. You only give me these horrible examples of your opinion on why there is a STEM gap and how it should be fixed. One of the articles at the end literally blamed Trump. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? It went on this rant about women in World War II were the reason that we broke codes, and then we can use that to fix STEM, but Trump's a racist. They're like, what? Literally, that was the article. And so, like,
Had to put it in there.
yeah, that's kind of stuff that we're dealing with, and I'm sure at, more secular liberal universities like Berkeley, Stanford, that's what I was going to say too. I'm sure at those it's 100 times worse. This is just at a junior college English class. I don't know if you guys have had any of the same experiences that I have, but that's been my experience so far. It's not a huge deal, but it's the little things. That happens. It's slowly. It makes people start thinking. So if you guys have anything, you guys are welcome to share also.
Okay, so I've gone to 2 different colleges. I've gone to a private Christian university, and then I am currently going to a junior college in Bakersfield. But the private Christian university I went to was one of the top 10 conservative schools in the nation, and yet I literally never interacted with someone else who had Republican views. All my professors had somewhat left-leaning views. Same with the president of our school. Like, I feel like he never really outspoke on his political views, but if he did, it was more leaning towards what our leftist side of the school wanted to hear. I was the only Republican among my friend group, which isn't a big deal because we had really great discourse and stuff, but it was pretty clear that even though, like, we're supposed to be a conservative school, even, like, the conservative schools aren't truly conservative anymore, especially in California or LA. I never had problems with, like, specific classes that ever pushed things that were more leftist. I actually got really lucky with my private Christian university, and we got teachers who had presented all different kind of viewpoints, but when I think of, like, the indoctrination, it was more just with certain types of, like, events we had, and they really put emphasis on diversity and things like that, which I don't have a problem with diversity, but, like, it just seemed like they were always appeasing to that rather than, like, other types of topics that should have been talked about as well.
Well, let's hit on that, because diversity is kind of a big problem, or not a problem, but it's a big, not diversity itself is a problem, but the way of achieving diversity is very controversial right now. So in order to be a more diverse campus, they're turning away more qualified students of either white or Asian now. Asian students are now the number one, socioeconomically in the country. They have the best grades. They make the most money per capita, and they're starting to turn away white students and Asian students. And in order to be more diverse, and this was made legal in a Supreme Court decision. I forget which one it is. It was a case, and basically, there can't be quotas, but gender and race can be a deciding factor in admissions. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about that, now it's easier for a minority, unless you're Asian, to get into college than it is for a white person or an Asian person. And, to me, as someone who is a conservative and who thinks that the person with the most qualifications and the best suited for that position should get into that university or should get into that job, this is a huge dilemma for me, especially as a white male. I'm directly the one being discriminated against. If there is a woman who has a lower GPA or a black person who has a lower GPA, they can get into a university with a lower GPA, with lower test scores than I can, just because of their skin color. And, if that's not racist, I don't know what it is. You're literally choosing people just on their skin color, or...
No, you're refusing people based off their skin color,
yeah,
but taking others,
But
right?
taking others based on their skin color or based on their gender, that's sexist. Age, gender, race, religion, that shouldn't matter when it comes to these things. When it comes to who is the best person who is best suited for the job, and that applies to college too. I want to be I think it's important to have, like, a diverse campus and stuff, but I want to be surrounded by people who are going to work hard with me, who are going to deserve that their spot there and who have worked hard to get there. and like-minded people, and I don't see that happening. A friend was telling me one time, like, this is so bad, like, the issues that happen within the campus too is that now you have all these entitled people, minorities, not just minorities but white people too, that get in because they're rich and their daddies, mommies bought their way in. Yeah, but it was so bad, the race issue is so bad. One of my friends was telling me that he had some friends that were in a club, and it was like a black club, like it was for black students. You know how they have like Asian clubs, like Asian history, ancestry, whatever it was. And he had some friends that were in it, and their friends said that they only got half of a vote because they were only half black in that club. That's racist. That's the definition of racism. You're saying just because you're not a skin color, even if you're half, that you don't get a full vote? Like, what would happen if I told you that, like, you can't vote for the president, you only get half a vote for your president because you're only half white? Like, that's racist. That doesn't make any sense. And this is the stuff that they're allowing that happens on college campuses.
Right. Yeah. All right, we good to move on to the next point?
Yeah.
What was that one?
Protest opposing views and groupthink.
Yeah. I mean, that's very true. You can see this at, Berkeley is a great example, but you have many other big universities, and the problem is they don't allow, if they don't agree with your opinion, and I mean students, professors, whatever, and then they automatically just, I don't know, they disrespect you. They don't care anything about you, but if you have an opposing view from them, you're dead to them. Like, that's just how it is. And so, like, that can't be the way that you go about that. Especially, you have to be open-minded to everything. Especially, it doesn't even have to be political. It could just be religious or whatever other ethical views that you may have or moral values. But it always seems like, especially when you go to these liberal universities, they hate opposition. Mm-hmm. They hate people that don't agree with their views. And it's wrong to do that because, one, it stops other students who want to be open-minded from being open-minded, because then they're pressured into, you know what, I don't want to even bother with it because I'm not going to be, ridiculed for what I believe or being open-minded about anything. And that's just wrong. I hate the fact that people are afraid to express their opinions because other people will literally ridicule them and make fun of them or make an example of them for just how they believe politically, especially politically. That's a huge thing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a big issue that I think we have today. And I think it really starts from the classroom, from mm-hmm. professors. It's not student viewpoints. It's from professors in the classroom expressing their viewpoints, putting out that influence on their students who are listening, and then now their students are doing the same thing to other people.
Well, I think it's professors, faculty, and big money sponsors who want their money to go to something that they want to be taught.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I went to a university that was labeled one of the top 10 conservative universities in the nation, and like I said, I never met another Republican, or at least an outspoken Republican. I can't even remember like a time where I actually like fully said what I was actually thinking on certain issues. I had to keep my mouth shut so much because I wanted to avoid like any conflict or like cancellation. I had one really good friend who I could always tell her, and she was very open-minded and willing to like hear everything I said. And so that was really nice to have her there and like be able to talk about it and not get any judgment. And so it was really hard though, being on like in that scenario with, I'm surrounded by like people who are Democrat, and I'm like one of the only Republicans, and they know my character as well, and like they knew me as a person, but yet I had said like one opposing viewpoint that was like a little more on the super conservative side, then I would have like been immediately judged for that rather than like what my character has shown. Same with like I'm going to a program right now and I'm pretty sure I'm the only conservative there too. Like everybody's talking about the election and I just have to sit there pretending like I'm voting for like a Democratic Party and keep my mouth shut, because I know that no matter what, in those scenarios I'll always be the bad guy just because of who I vote for and who I support.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like that on either side. You know, I don't think that a liberal on campus should be oppressed or discriminated or, you know, looked down upon for their liberal views. You know, that's how we learn, that's how we become better, as we listen to other people's views. And that's a big thing that's happening on college campuses, is that people are attacked for their views. And I think one of the biggest reasons people become liberal or leave college becoming liberal or leftist or embracing these ideas is that when you have your own ideas and your own values, you're attacked for them. But when you give in, they make things easy for you.
Yeah, you don't have any pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You get better grades. All of a sudden, your professors are grading your papers better. You know, like that's huge.
I mean, luckily I've never had issues with grading because I'm like Republican or have Republican views, like but it's, I mean, I love all my Democratic and liberal friends and family, and we always have really good conversations, which I really appreciate, but I know that like a lot of situations I have to keep my mouth shut on some things too, which isn't always fair. But luckily I know you've had some issues like you had mentioned with your classes, but like luckily I've actually in my like history departments, I've gotten really lucky with like issues of politics and stuff where they've been really open-minded to both viewpoints, where people have put like the more liberal side and then more Republican side and have had a good like discourse with that.
Yeah, I have a article here. It's called America Out Loud. It's actually like really interesting. The title of the article is "The Indoctrination of Our College Youth," and basically it talks about how parents should be informed or like have knowledge of kind of what they're sending their, you know, incoming college students, their kids into.
Mm-hmm.
And not that it's like the complete worst thing ever, like they're sending them into war, but like you know, like just being knowledgeable and just not ignorant to what they're sending their kids into.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points that really stood out to me when I was reading it, it was talking about hold on, let me find it real quick. Right here. Okay, so there's a section here in the article. It says, in order to gain power and control, today socialists or Democrats have added free college tuition among the entitlement programs they want to offer or believe everyone should have. Obama, during his presidency, did all he could to contribute to the mindset of entitlement, which is why more people are on food stamps than any other time in history. Basically, socialism levels the playing field and tries to bring the less fortunate up a little bit while bringing the successful and more fortunate down a little, and at times a lot. What's lost is the fact that this kills the incentive to go ahead or to work more or work harder. This ultimately is where socialism breaks down and fails. The result in every case being colossal failure and sometimes ending in the death of millions. As I state in my book, socialism is like a parasite plant which chokes the life out of other plants, right? So I think that's really interesting because, and you can definitely see that today, a lot of college liberal students believe they're entitled to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
Well, I mentioned that earlier about the entitlement on campus, whether it's you're white and you're rich or you're a minority and you got in because of your lower grades, but they just want minorities. You know, it's not bad that, you know, you have a certain amount of minorities, but when at the point where there's a balance, because, you know, you're not accepting the best qualified. Like I said, you know, when I'm at a job, I want the best qualified. And I think this free education is definitely going to contribute to that, because education is not a right.
Mm-hmm.
Driving is not a right. You know, those are privileges. we have basic rights that are given to us,
God-given rights.
God-given rights that are given to us in our Constitution. Education is not in there. We have the right to life, right to liberty, pursuit of happiness,
Yeah.
religion, freedom of religion. But then nowhere does it say, yeah, you have education as your right. No, that's not a right. And I don't want to get into the principle of free education, but I think this idea of when you're going to college and you're with these people who are pushing free education, it's a gateway to socialism. When you're going in debt this much money because the colleges are screwing you and they're overpriced, and even to go to a good conservative college are expensive, because the cheap colleges are the ones that are being funded by the state. Well, guess what happens when they're funded by the state? You have to teach what the state wants.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have problems with tenure, and you have problems with professors that have been there a while, and these hippie professors that have been there for decades that will
Right.
never be able to get fired,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll get a lawsuit. And then now they get to teach whatever they want. And I think there's a problem with both students and faculty and teachers on the campus. And like I said, I'm at a junior college right now, and I'm already seeing this kind of stuff, and it's not terrible, but it's frustrating, and I feel like I can't express my views in certain classes. And I think that's a problem whenever you feel like you can't express your views for fear of, whether it's feeling oppressed by that group,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like they just don't like you, or whether you get graded harsher.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right. If what you're saying is logical, it makes sense, it applies to what you're learning, then why do we have a problem here?
Yeah. It's just really annoying to me when college is supposed to be a time where you find yourself, or you form your own views aside from your parents. And I don't like when colleges on either side are completely radical and obviously pushing an agenda for their students. Even if you're a Republican or a liberal, I think you should let your students form their own opinions and give them facts for either side, and let them be able to judge for themselves what they think is the right side to be on. But it's just really annoying when schools push, oh, here's your critical thinking skills, you need to be a critical thinker in college, and yet only show you one side of what they want you to see, and then you have to critical think only with one sort of viewpoint. And that's not critical thinking. You need all sorts of viewpoints in order to critical think. You need the leftist viewpoint, and you need the right viewpoint, and it all in the middle, all in between, and
Up, down, left, right.
yep, you need all of it. And so when colleges are only pushing their students toward one viewpoint, how are they ever going to think for themselves, and how are they ever going to form new ideas?
Yeah, that was the point I was trying to make about the essay, is that you're teaching critical thinking and writing skills, and you're wanting me to argue for a paper, but you're only presenting me one view to argue from.
No one ever got a better opinion or a better argument just because they only listen to one person. You become a good arguer by listening to all viewpoints, not just what you're being told to listen to.
Exactly. And Jared, you had a point you wanted to make referencing the movie God's Not Dead.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great it has religious viewpoints, but it also has to do, there's not abortion, but basically God. A lot of liberal universities, they don't like using God in anything.
Mm-mm.
And so
Well, those state universities, like I said, they have to be taught by what the state says.
Well,
and,
right.
You can't present God.
Can't present a viewpoint on one religion, but can present one viewpoint on one political portion.
Right. And so basically, with that movie, the point that I want to make, God's Not Dead, is at the beginning, if you've seen the movie, the college student, he's in class and he has an atheist professor, right? And he has all of his students, every single one, write on a piece of paper, God is dead. And I think that's really unique. Why? Because that puts everyone on the same page as far as a mindset goes. Because if everyone's on the same page, even if they don't believe it, but now you've forced them into that position to where now they've agreed with your viewpoint that God is dead, right?
Well,
now you can tell them whatever you want.
It promotes groupthink. It promotes that thinking
That's
that
exactly
goes
what
behind
that
these
is.
riots. It limits your freedom of speech.
It's not individual thinking, and that's the problem.
When you're telling someone that they have to say or think or write that God is not dead, they have to do this, that's limited freedom of speech.
And that's a scary path to go down.
Yeah, and so, as you see in the movie, he refuses to write it. Why? Because he stands with his beliefs. He stands with his religion. Why? Because him in his heart and his own morals and values believes God is not dead, right? And so I think that's a perfect example of how universities have pushed their influence and opinions on students by, they may not be having students write things on paper, doing, saying statements like that, but I can definitely see and imagine professors promoting their beliefs in a similar way. And so, but it made it very hard for that student in that class. It made it very difficult. There was a lot of challenges that he faced in that class. He didn't do, he was under a lot of pressure or something like that. I can't fully remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a
but
while either.
I remember that, he was just under a lot of tremendous pressure. I think he was being graded poorly too on a lot of things because of how his viewpoint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my illustration there as far as that point goes with groupthink and individual mindsets. That if you shut that down like that, that's not teaching one anything. It's not teaching your students anything. That's just promoting your opinion and then basically just planting the seeds for them to believe what you want them to believe. And it's wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what's interesting about some of these contracts now that professors can sign to where they can keep their job for 10 years. You could literally have a professor who is extremely liberal
or conservative,
and if you challenge their viewpoint, can fail you without consequence, basically, because they're on that contract.
Yeah. And so I think that's all the points that we had tonight. Did you guys have anything else you want to hit on?
I wanted to actually say one more thing. You know how you have a lot of speakers, right? They come to college campuses, right, for conferences or whatever. And I've seen, and whoever's listening has probably seen a lot of times when these speakers, especially conservative, come to these liberal universities, there's giant protests. There's a lot of just verbal and even probably a little bit of violence too in a lot of situations, or they'll keep the speaker from being able to get to the location, or they can only limit a few people now to the location because now it's considered almost a dangerous situation to go to the campus or go to that that place wherever the conference is being held.
I actually have a good example of that because my sister went to Grand Canyon University, and they were supposed to have, I believe it was Ben Shapiro, come speak there, and a few students, I think it was 4 students to 5 students, had wrote the president or whoever makes the decision about who comes and speaks there letters about why he shouldn't be allowed to speak there, and they had originally canceled his attendance to come to GCU and speak, and then it actually reversed, and the people who were really interested in Ben Shapiro fought back, and so ended up getting him to come back and speak. But it just shows how easily they're willing to give in to avoid that conflict or to avoid that possibility of being canceled or being called who knows what. But it just seems colleges give in way too easily to
it's that mob mentality that we're talking about. The mob doesn't want one thing and everyone gives into it because it's easier. And before we end, I wanted to make the point with the God's Not Dead movie. It would have been easy for that guy to give in, but what happens, he doesn't give in. He fights for what he believes in. And at the end, he has one of the foreign exchange student, I believe,
Yeah.
he converted. He was interested. Even before they had, the climax of the movie was him presenting his view on why God's not dead. I don't want to spoil it, but he presents his view. But even before that, he has his friend or his classmate come, and he basically teaches him about Christianity. And then he ends up talking to the professor about it. He ends up talking to the whole class. I don't remember what happens to the whole class. I think they basically
just anything really happens.
Yeah, but it's that one friend, because this one person decided to stand up for his views. That guy was able to hear the gospel for the first time.
He also converted the professor too.
Well, it was the professor's wife, wasn't it? That
No.
kind of converted him.
No, it was because basically, if you haven't seen the movie,
I think it was
probably
a combination
spoilers.
of both.
It's been out a long time, so if you haven't seen it, sorry, we're gonna
Yeah.
spoil it for you. But basically, the professor, he's atheist, right? But his wife and like kids and stuff, they're Christians, so they're a split household. But like, he believes in atheist viewpoints, right? But he didn't want to believe in God, and that was the thing. And so at the end, there's a concert that they're going to see, right?
Yeah.
And the atheist ends up getting hit by a car, right?
Yeah, and
But he eventually dies, but he was also converted. Like he basically he was saved because he believed in God. I think someone talked to him too and asked him what
it was
he
the
was
pastor.
religious
The
or
pastor
something like
prayed
that.
with them,
Right.
but it was a combination of that student standing up for what he believed in and his wife standing up for what she believed in
Yeah.
and didn't give in. And that's the point I wanted to make, especially since it's college, but ending with the college student. The point of that movie is don't give in. And that's what we're trying to tell you. Don't give in. Fight for what you believe in. Because even if it changes one life, that's one life saved. And it's worth it.
Right.
And so, does anyone have any concluding thoughts?
No, I think that's about it, man. Good.
Well, tried keeping it a little short tonight. I think we did a good job of it. Thank you guys for listening. Please listen to our other episodes, especially the Is America Evil episode. A lot of the stuff that we talked about in that episode comes from views that were brought up from college professors and college students that were indoctrinated. And so, message of hope. You guys need to keep fighting. You don't give in. Listen. Things are going to get hard, but, do what that guy did. Even if it changes one life, it's one life saved. And so, thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter. Listen to us wherever you get your local podcasts. We'll have this up on YouTube.
Share these episodes. Get them out there. Share them with friends and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, we'd really love to, spread our message here of what we're kind of talking about.
Yeah,
and
and
spread our viewpoints a little bit too.
And if you guys would like to donate, please donate. If you go onto our Anchor website, trying to get equipment for some video to get up on YouTube. Got to figure all that stuff out, but it's not free to do this. So we appreciate everyone that listens. Like I said, follow us, like, subscribe. If you have any suggestions on future videos, any future audio, please DM us. Get a hold of us. We'd love to hear from you guys. Any words of encouragement, things you thought we could do better, things that we didn't do great. We like to hear it all. So thank you, Megan, for coming on again.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
And we hope to see you guys soon.